Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I have attention, please? All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead, open up your notebooks to where we left off. I think we were talking about France, yes? And the situation in France, where there's going to be some interesting drama going on in the midst of the time of the Protestant Reformation. So we're going to be looking into that. One of the things, it's like, we're going to be talking about a thing in history called the War of the Three Henrys. I'm going to need at least a couple of you guys to help me out as a Henry. Do we have any volunteers to be a Henry? We've got a Henry over here. We've got a Henry over there. Good. Okay, I need a Marguerite. Perfect. This is good. All right. Right. Because there's important decisions that are made in history and so forth. And we need to know, are you going to make those decisions? Like, was it you? Did you vote to kill your cousin? You did. Just like that. No hesitation. Why would she want to kill you? Was it you? It was you, wasn't it? Yeah, why did she want to kill you? Wait, now you were Elizabeth or you were Mary? Oh, did she kill you? No. Who killed who? Really? How did you kill her? How was she killed? She was executed. She was beheaded. Right? Did you know what that word meant before you took this class? Beheaded, chop chop, right? Literally like knock the head off of the rest of the body. Wow, this is pretty serious stuff. So, hope you guys had a lovely weekend, and we've got next week off, by the way, so you can like have turkey or any other like meat product and so forth that's had its head removed from its body, so that you can have a lovely festive time with your family, right? Isn't that lovely? Yeah. Have you guys ever actually had a meal where they served the meat product with the head still attached? No? Have you ever? No, I did once. It was Peking duck. It was in China. I was taking students there, and we were sitting around the table. We had Peking duck. It was delicious. Oh my gosh, it was really good. But of course, they did have the head still there. And there was this one kid who was like probably about 10 or 12 or so forth, and he kept poking at the eyeball in the detached. Exactly. And this lady, I thought she was going to barf all over the entire table. So I grabbed the plate with the head of the detached duck and so forth and pulled it away from the boy because he was using his little chopsticks to create quite a problem there. Yeah. So anyway, we got more death, destruction, and images like that as we continue looking at this story of the Protestant Reformation and all of the chaos that's taking place in Europe during this time period. Okay? Oh, we've gone too far. There we go. There we are. Where last we left off, I think we were talking about how Protestantism had made its way into France. Hello? France is not too far away from the German-speaking areas. And who was the first German-speaking Protestant? Actually, it was the first Protestant in Europe. Thank you very much, right? And did we see Protestantism develop there? John Calvin, just across the border from France in Switzerland, was also developing his version of Protestantism, and that was the form that had made its way into France, the Calvinist variety. But what do we call a French Calvinist Protestant? Huguenot, exactly. The Huguenots. They got different names in different places and so forth. The Huguenots. And where did they live primarily in France? In the north or the south? Think purple. In the south, exactly. In the southern areas, there was a predominance of Protestants. In the northern areas, not so much. And specifically, in and around the capital city of Paris was Catholic. Got that? So, what was the official religion of the monarchs of France? You got a choice. Calvinist, Huguenot, or a Catholic. Huguenots? No. Catholic? Yes. Make sure you have this in your notes. They were Catholic. The monarchs were Catholic. Okay? And who was our first Henry? You're the first Henry, right? You're going to be the first Henry? You're Henry III. Henry III, write it down. Henry III is the Catholic king of France. But he's kind of like, sometimes you get like monarchs of countries and they're like, oh my gosh, do I have to like deal with all of this religious stuff? He didn't feel so super strongly about the issue. I mean, of the people that we've covered so far, who would be one person in England that really felt strongly that Catholicism was the perfect religion? Yeah, Mary I, right? Bloody Mary. Henry was not like her. Henry III was a little bit more sort of like, I don't know, what would be an English monarch that was sort of like, hey, you know, whatever. Henry VIII, yeah, I know. Now we're going to be throwing you off a little bit. We got a list of Henrys over in England. The last Henry we talked about was Henry VIII in England. In France, we got a whole separate list of Henrys. Got that? Yeah, like on that level of Henrys, we're at Henry III. And he is Catholic, but he's not so adamant about it. It's not like Spain. In Spain, you were Catholic or you were dead or you were out of the country. Spain was very, very Catholic. Do you guys remember? Raise your hand if you can tell me. What was the husband of England's Queen Mary, Bloody Mary? He was a Spanish king. Remember his name? It's in your notes. You need to know it. Yes? Philip II. Very good. And he was the same guy who was like, hey, my wife just died. Elizabeth, why don't you become my new... Elizabeth was like, no, I'm not interested in becoming your new wife. I don't agree with your particular view on religion and so forth. Okay? Mary, Queen of Scots, was also Catholic. If she had survived, right? You were Mary, Queen of Scots. If you had survived and become the Queen of England, you might have tried to do what the previous Mary had done, and that is to restore the Catholic faith. Mary, Queen of Scots, was actually from a French Catholic family from the north, and they were, make sure you put this in your notes, there are some French Catholics that are ultra-Catholics. You know what I mean by ultra-Catholic? They felt very strongly that Catholics should be the official, it was the official religion. Well, here's what they really felt. There should be no Protestants in France. Write that down. Ultra-Catholics felt there should be no Protestants in France. And they kept coming over to Henry III. Hey, Henry III, what are you doing? What are you doing to getting rid of all the Protestants? Oh, there we go. There's an answer for you. Doesn't really matter. So are you clearing out the Protestants in the South? No. Why not? They're there. I mean, come on. The country needs to be like 100% Catholic. And there's Protestants down in the South. Do something about them. You're not doing your job, they would say to you. And you're like, hey, I'm doing fine. All right? I think we actually got to this point last time. Okay? Let's check this out. So we got some ultra-Catholics in the South. Excuse me, ultra-Catholics. Well, some of them are, you know, near the South and so forth. And they want to do something about it. So what did they do? At Vassy, they massacred a bunch of Huguenot, Protestant, Calvinist, churchgoers. I think we got this last time. Does this look familiar? Right? They were massacred on their way. I can't remember if they were at church or they were leaving church. In any event, they were massacred. Okay? So what was the response? What was the response then to the Protestants who are getting, the ones that had survived? Tell me. What did they do? Did they quit going to church? Did they leave the country? What did they do? Wow. Do you get that? They started carrying weapons with them as a way of self-protection. So they're going to church, they got the Bible in one hand, and they got like a revolver or a musket or maybe like a dagger or something in the other hand. Isn't that weird? Have you ever known somebody who's like, I'm going to go to religious services now. Where's my gun? I mean, seriously, that would be a strange thing to bring. Although, you can understand why they're doing that. All right? Now, you ready for it? Here's where we're picking it up. Henry III, what are you going to do about it? Protestants are starting to arm themselves. They're going to take over the country. What are you going to do? This is a problem. Protestants are starting to arm themselves. They're going to take over the country. What are you going to do about it, King Henry III? Are you really going to try and stop them? Do you know why they're arming themselves? Do you think they're arming themselves to, overthrow you? I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing. Would the Protestants think that perhaps the solution for them would be to take control of the country? That would be a weird thing, because then Protestants would be in charge of a country that's like 70, 80% Catholic. That could be problematic. But would they do that in order to protect themselves? Who was it that attacked them at church? Not the king? So does the king do anything about the fact that Protestants are starting to arm themselves? No, write that down. The king is not as concerned about it. I mean, he sort of is, but he's sort of thinking back, why are they arming themselves? Oh, they just want protection, right? It's not like they're going to be stupid enough to actually try and, bring all their weapons up with them up to Paris and try and overthrow things. As it turns out, things do start getting a little hairy, and some fighting kind of breaks out. It looks like it's going to break out in a really big way, and Henry III has a solution. Henry III has a solution, and he says to the leader of the Protestants in France, Henry of Navarre, that's you. Got a question for you. This is coming from Henry III. I'm passing it along to you. Will you marry his sister? Will you marry his sister? You're like, that's kind of where the heck did that come from? Why would you want to get married to the king's sister? Why would you want to get married to the king's? Would that be cool?
Well, maybe it stops the fighting.
Oh, that's an idea. What if Henry of Navarre married the sister of the queen? Her name is, how do you say your name? Marguerite. You would marry her as a way of bringing peace to the country? What a brilliant idea. Way to go, Henry III. Maybe if we can get the leader of the Protestants to marry, what is your religion, Marguerite? Yeah, of course, yeah, because the monarchs are Catholic, the royal family's Catholic. And so, are you an ultra-Catholic? No, you're more like your brother. You're yeah, we're Catholic, but we're not going to shove it down. Hello, you're marrying a Protestant. If you were an ultra-Catholic, would you marry a Protestant? Heck no. You would marry a Catholic that felt very strongly about those things as well. So here we go. Oh, by the way, did I mention the name of the leader of the ultra-Catholics? Guess what his first name is? Thank you very much. It's Henry. Yes, it is Henry. Okay? You're like, how many Henrys are we going to? 3. They call it the War of the Three Henrys. And we're going to see it involves war and 3 Henrys. Henry III, Henry of Navarre, and you can see I put already on the slide later Henry IV. You can sort of see, spoiler alert. And then, of course, this other Henry, and he was actually from the northern part of France. He was a leading noble and an ultra-Catholic. Okay? So they decide, let's see if we can bring all the people together. They're going to have a big wedding. Write this down. They're going to have a big wedding. The hope is it can bring peace to France among Catholics and Protestants. Now, notice this. Who is a part of this arrangement? Is the Catholic royal family a part of this arrangement? Yes. Is the Protestants part of this arrangement? The Huguenots. Yes, because you're a Huguenot. Henry of Navarre, you're a Huguenot. Are the ultra-Catholics part of this arrangement? Do the ultra-Catholics like this? Do the ultra-Catholics like the fact that we got a Protestant now marrying into the royal family? No, no, no. Write it down. The ultra-Catholics are not happy with this. In fact, they tell King Henry III, that has got to be the stupidest idea. I mean, they say it in so many different words because you can't just tell the king right in his face that he's making a stupid decision. But they keep their lines of communication open with the King of France, Henry III. They're like, oh my gosh, this could turn out really, really bad. And they're always saying, in fact, think of it this way, all right? Let me see. Where are your wedding guests? You're over here. These are your guys, right? So they're all coming to the wedding, right? Except for the king. He's right there and so forth. And you guys, you're like, I don't know, you're the friends of the bride, right? So we're going to have a wedding. Where are we going to have the wedding? Where are we going to have the wedding? Are we going to have the wedding down in the southern part of France where his family is? Or are we going to have the wedding in the northern part of France like in Paris where the royal family is? That's an easy one. Write it down. It's going to be in the bride's hometown. It's going to be at the royal city, the capital city. Where is the capital city? What's the capital of France? Paris, and it's up in the north. All right, so we got the day set up. And in fact, it's on a very important religious day, so they're going to have the wedding. There's going to be a whole bunch of festivities. It's on St. Bartholomew's Day. St. Bartholomew's Day. It's on the religious calendar. They're like, hey, let's have this wedding. We'll bring in all these guests from the south, okay? And then there'll be guests for the royal family, and it'll be great. Everyone will be happy. All right? Let me ask you, what have you got as a present for the bride and groom? Do you have a present? Are you going to bring a present? You're like, no, forget coming. You're going to bring a present for the bride and groom, right? Of course. I mean, raise your hand if you're going to bring a present for the bride and groom. Everyone, raise your hand. Okay? Is there anything else you're going to bring with you from the south? Wow, now that's pretty bold. I'm going to a wedding with my gun. Why are you bringing a gun with you from, like, the south to go to a wedding up in the north? What are you afraid? Are there a lot of Catholics up in the north? Are some of those Catholics of the variety that might, like, attack you? And write this down. You got it right. Yeah, you were totally right. A lot of the wedding guests, Protestants who are coming from the south, are bringing with them something that they've been carrying around now for the last several years, protection, weapons. They're bringing protection. Got that? What are your guests bringing? How many of you guys, you're like friends of the bride. Are you bringing guns too? No, you don't need to bring guns. You're like, you're safe. So here's a problem. Get this? They're bringing guns up north. When a bunch of people from the south who are Huguenots bring guns up north, what could that possibly mean? What does it mean? Let me ask you the question. Are you doing it just for personal protection, or is part of your underlying motivation to overthrow the Catholic monarchy and put into place a Protestant? The first one, just for personal protection. Are you trying to overthrow the monarchy? I wouldn't admit to it. He's like, no, I'm just going for a wedding, that's all. Overthrow the monarchy? What the heck? You guys are not helping yourselves at all. Because here, write this down. You ready? Leading Catholic, ultra-Catholics are sending messages to Henry III saying, you need to do something about these Protestants. They're bringing up weapons from the south. They mean you harm. What are you going to do about it? Come on, King. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to let them just bring their weapons into the capital city? You're just going to put security, so you're going to put your guns on their guns? I mean, is that enough security? Is that enough security? If you're going to have like a major important person like the President of the United States attending something, are you just going to let people bring in their own personal security into that event? No, thank you very much. You could still be part of the Secret Service. Write this down. The king has just spoken. No guns in Paris. Write it down. No guns in Paris. Because, yeah, they asked a few people, and they're like, yeah, we're going to overthrow the king. You know, what the heck? No guns in Paris. So they leave their weapons outside of the gates of the city of Paris. So now they go in, and what do you got going in to Paris? Not your gun. You've got your wedding present. and the expectation of a really fun, lovely, festive time. Right? You're shaking your head. You don't think this is going to work out very well. They're giving up their personal protection on the promise from the king. Everything's going to be all fine. Because look, the king is the soon-to-be father-in-law of your bro here. This is this is Henry of Navarre. He's like your leader down in the south. He's going to join the royal family. Everything's going to be good. Everything's happy and festive and so forth. Are you feeling comfortable about that? So here we go. It's wedding day. It's Bartholomew's day. It's wedding day, right? Are you looking forward to a wedding? Yes, you're like, I do. Although it is a forced marriage, it's not like, in truth, Marguerite wanted to get married to somebody else, it looks like, and so forth. But, arranged marriages, what can you do? So it's a marriage, festive, happy, so forth. The king's like, oh, gosh, finally, okay, we've got no guns in the wedding and so forth. Everything's going to be fine. Are you ready? Yes? No. There's no guns allowed to be brought in. You can't go, this is just a box with ribbon and wrapping. No. You're not going to be able to sneak it. Here's the deal, guys. Do you feel comfortable? Wedding day. You're in Paris. You got no weapons. You got a gift that you're going to hand over. I don't know, like steak knives? No, not steak knives. You've got something you're going to hand over. But do you feel safe? Do you feel safe? Do you feel safe? You don't? You feel a little uneasy? Because, write this down. You ready? Ultra-Catholics are still going to the king. And they say to the king, did you look and see how many of those dangerous Protestants there are going around the city? There's so many of them. There's so many of these Huguenots moving around in the city. This is dangerous for you. You need to do something about it. Your response. Do you feel threatened? You're surrounded by Protestants. Look at them all around you. Good question. Why should he be worrying about them? They're disarmed, right? They're disarmed. You're actually pretty calm. You're pretty reasonable. Our Henry III is pretty calm and pretty reasonable. But that's not how it was historically. Write it down. Henry III became convinced that these Protestant wedding guests were a danger. Who convinced him? Ultra-Catholics convinced him. And what did they want him to do? What did they want the king to do to you, Protestant wedding guests, unarmed in the city of Paris? Kill them? Like kill them? Just massacre them? Like that? Like that. Here is a painting depiction of St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. Write it down. They were massacred. They were massacred, they were massacred, they were massacred. If you were a guest, an out-of-towner in Paris, the king's forces mixed in there with the ultra-Catholics and so forth, they were hunting you down and they were killing you on the spot. And what did you have to defend yourself? Yeah, like ribbon and a box or something. You had nothing. They're getting killed. Kill, 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 kill. This is after, of course, we had the I do. Here we've got, you're like, this is the worst wedding ever. Oh my gosh. How many of you guys would like to have on your wedding day all your guests, or at least half of them, get massacred? I don't think so. And of course, the people who are doing the killing, they find their way to one person in particular. You, Henry of Navarre, you've just married into the royal family. You are now the king's son-in-law, married to, actually the king's brother-in-law, I guess, married to the king's sister. Are they going to kill him too? I mean, he is now part of the royal family. Are they going to kill you? They might. They got a question for you. Ready? Listen very carefully as you consider this question. Listen very carefully. Let's see how he decides. You are a Protestant. When you came into the city, when you got married, at this moment, Are you still a Protestant, or do you renounce your Protestant faith and take, as the ultra-Catholics would say, the true and only faith, the Catholic faith? Are you willing to die for your previous faith, or are you going to convert right here, right now, to the Catholic faith?
Convert.
How many of you guys would have made the same decision as Henry of Navarre? Convert. How many of you guys would be like, no, I'm going to stick to my faith, take me down? What do you think? Why would you convert? Because I don't want to die. He don't want to die. All right, you ready? Write this down. He converted. Henry IV became a Catholic. And that actually is kind of intimated there, because later we're going to see he actually will become the king. This is a mess. This is crazy. This is wow. Eventually, after the people potentially who are going to kill you, all right, they've gone. They've left the room. They're not threatening you anymore. What are you going to do now? Are you going to go off on your previously planned honeymoon with your new bride? Or are you going to make other plans? Are you going to hang out in Paris for a while longer, or is there some other place you'd like to go?
Not very.
Write this down. He's not going to stick around in Paris. But we didn't hear. Where are you going to go? Is there some place that you might feel a little safer than Paris, where people are getting killed left, right, and center? Very good. Southern France. There you go. So he heads back to the safety of southern France. Now that you're chilling safe in southern France, in your home territory, with your friends, at least not the friends who came up with you, to your closest friends who came to the wedding are all dead. The friends who had something else going on and couldn't come to your wedding and so forth, they're alive. Now that you're back in southern France, question, because people are curious. I heard this rumor that you converted to Catholicism. Is that still your religion now that you're back in southern France?
Nope.
That was fast. Why'd you change it?
Because I don't want them to kill me.
Okay. Wow, you seem like you're just sort of pretty practical when it comes to your religion. Write it down. He turned it back to Protestant. He did. And actually, maybe it's not just sort of oh, flippant, wherever the people are around me. I mean, he had adopted that religion when he was in the South, and he held on to it. So now he is a Protestant, again, safe in the southern part of France. Got that? Now, what is he going to do next? As it turns out, Henry III feels kind of bad about how things worked for the wedding of his sister. Do you feel kind of bad about how that worked, Henry III? Do you feel like you were used badly? You made some poor judgment? And then what can you do after, you kill all these different wedding guests? As it turns out, war would break out. Write it down. The War of the Three Henrys. The first loser, you, Henry III. The ultra-Catholics can never count on you. I mean, you get used this way, that way, and so forth. You lose. You're gone. What about the ultra-Catholic leader, Henry? He's going to end up gone as well. Well, let me see. We started out with three Henrys. Who's left? This Henry. This Henry who marries into the family. This is the Henry who is now positioned to become the king. And this is ironic, because were the ultra-Catholics happy about Henry of Navarre being allowed to marry into the royal family? Heck no. And they feel like they got lied to by this man over here. They got lied to you because you said, oh, yes, I'm a true Catholic. And then, first opportunity he had to switch back, he did. So now here he is. He's Henry IV. He's the King of France. And everyone wants to know, ultra-Catholics, sort of in-between Catholics, Huguenots, now that you're the king, now that you're in charge, what's it going to be? What's his religion going to be? Let's hear some advice before we actually get the decision. Raise your hand if you've got some advice. What should he be? Should he be Protestant? Should he be Catholic? What do you think? Why would you say Catholic? Because most of the country is Catholic? Is that what you're saying? How many of you guys agree with that advice? You should be Catholic because most of the country is Catholic. How many of you guys think you should be Protestant? What do you think? Why should it be Protestant? Yeah, so stick to your religion that you have, right? What do you think it should be? Why? Oh, because there could be a problem with those Protestants. If you don't stick with your Protestant peeps, they're going to feel threatened, perhaps. What do you think you should do? But nobody's agreeing with you. But what is most of the Catholics going to feel like if this guy's over here and he's like the first Protestant king of France, and most of the people are Catholic? What are they going to feel? They're going to be mad. What are they going to do? Maybe, yeah, certainly the ultra-Catholics are going to try and kill him. And you're kind of going along that whole thing. He's pretty practical, right? You know, if it's safe to be Protestant in the room, he'll do that. And maybe that's what his preferred thing is. But if it's safer to be Catholic in order to avoid getting killed, all right, one more piece of advice. What should he do? Catholic or Protestant? Why? So you're thinking he might be safer if he goes Catholic? What's it going to be, King Henry IV? What are you going to choose? Are you going to be a Catholic king for a mostly Catholic country, or a Protestant king keeping in line with your Protestant beliefs and your friends and people, the minority population down in the South? What? Probably? You don't probably do this. It's like, I probably agree to get married to you. You know, it's either you're this or you're that. So what are you? Henry VIII was Anglican. Now, did he allow for Catholics to practice?
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. Can he be, like Henry III was, can he be a Catholic and be tolerant of Protestants in his country? Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah.
Sure, I'm the king, whatever. Yeah, we'll get to the depictions there. Henry picks a religion? You got it right. Write it down. Henry IV picked Catholic as the religion for him. He picked Catholic as the religion for him. And he uses this phrase, and I want you to take it off of the slide here. And we'll translate this and make sense of it. He says, Paris is worth a mass. That's what he said when he became Catholic as the king. Paris is the capital city, and he wanted to be the king, and he wanted to remain king, and he didn't want to have a big insurrection. So because he says that, it's worth it to me to be the king of a country and have most of the people get along with me as the king. It's worth it. A mass is a Catholic religious ceremony. It is a Catholic religious observance. So it's worth it for me to go to mass, says the king, if I can be the king and have everything cool. Some of the Catholics are like, yay. Some of the ultra-Catholics are like, I know this guy. He's not in his heart of hearts a true Catholic. In fact, let me ask you about this. What are you going to do about Protestants in your country? Are you going to let them live? Are you going to let them practice their religion? No? You're not? What should he do? Advice. Should he let the Protestants continue practicing their religion? Should he be like a Henry VIII of England or Queen Elizabeth? Yeah. So you're just going to let the ultra-Catholics sort of like bully him into like saying that there's no religious freedom? Wow. How many of you guys agree with that? Turn the entire country into an all-Catholic country. You say no? What should they do? What should the king do to Protestants? Let them practice. How many of you guys are like, let them practice? How many of you guys are like, no, crack down on them? What's it going to be, King? You're getting most of your advice saying let him practice. Is that your decision? All right, let's give it a name. It's called the Edict of Nantes. It's the Edict of Nantes from France in 1598. Henry IV said this in his edict: Protestants, I'm a Catholic king. Most of the people in France are Catholic, but you, Protestants, Huguenots, you can practice your religion. It is toleration. Henry IV will be for France kind of like Elizabeth was for England. He's going to be Mr. Toleration. You got that? Now, some of the Protestants are asking for one more thing. Raise your hand, any of you, if you can identify one more thing. They're like, hey, King, thanks for that religious toleration thing so that I can practice my religion. There's just one more thing. One more thing I think would be really, really helpful. What would that be? Destroy the ultra-Catholics. I don't know. I don't know. Get them before they get him? Yeah, well, I mean, they could work on that. What would be one other thing? We'll get to that in a moment. What would be one other thing that the Protestant would be like, it's nice to have my religious freedom, but it would be also really cool if I could have the right to do this. The right to have this. Yes? Wow, you want the king to give these guys the right to have weapons? Are you going to give them the right to have weapons? Write it down. There it is. It's part of the Edict of Nantes. And let's be specific. This is very important. The king says to the French Protestants, you may keep weapons, but, make sure you get this part, only in your southern territories. Right? So don't think about bringing them up to Paris. And of course, some of the French Protestants are like, trust me, I know what happens to Protestants when they come up to Paris. I don't think I'm going to be in that position. So they're allowed, under this edict, this law passed by the king, and the king is all-powerful in France. He says, Protestants, you get the right to practice your religion, and furthermore, in the South, you get to have guns. You can have your weapons to protect yourself against ultra-Catholics. Who doesn't like that? Go ahead, identify, king. Who doesn't like your Edict of Nantes? What are they going to do to you if they could? They did. Write it down. They killed him. They took him out. They assassinated him. They're like, man, we don't want no Protestant-friendly right. It's very interesting, though. If you want a right to do something, speak out, vote, or in this instance, have a right to practice your religion, it's an interesting idea. They also include with that the right to defend yourself in case somebody else is going to be trying to take that away. So, if you were later a king, and you were thinking, I am feeling like I really don't want these Protestants, and I really don't like guys carrying guns around unless they're part of my official military. What would you try and take away first, Jordan? What would you try and take away first? Their right to have a weapon or their right to religion? Very good. Write that down. Eventually, they're going to be taking away the right of the weapon. And it actually comes out in this story. This is during a later time under, I want to say, like Louis the 15th. And they first take away, Louis the 14th takes away the right for them to have, Louis the 13th. Louis the 13th. This is during the time of Louis the 13th. And Louis the 13th is persuaded to take away the right for them to have their weapons. And in this story, the heroes are the Three Musketeers. The villains are the ones who were telling Louis the 13th, take away their right to the guns, take away their right to the guns. And then, after you do that, what are you going to take away? Their right to practice their religion. Will that happen in France? It will happen in France. The king is gone, bring in another king, they take away the right to the weapon, and then eventually they take away the right to religion. And what you're going to have in France after the religious rights are taken away, Huguenots are going to be gone. There will not be Huguenots in France after that point. Okay? That is who are the heroes of the Three Musketeers? You're like, is that about a candy bar? No, these are a few Protestants with what kind of weapon? Muskets. They're the good guys. In the story, written by the French author. Any of you guys good at pronouncing French names? Anybody want to try and pronounce the name of the author here? Yes? Alexandre Dumas. I always thought it was Alexander Dumas. I'm sorry. But I think you're right. I think it's Alexandre Dumas because that makes much, much more sense. Okay? That is the hero. Yeah. But I'm bummed. Shh. That is such a cheap joke. I do that against everybody every time. Yes. Let's go back. There was a movie that was made, different film versions. Here's Henry of Navarre, who's a hero, and his wife, and Queen Mar. These are French films. I'm going to show you this. This is like, have you guys ever seen like a real like French film? They're very French and very dramatic and very sort of like over the top. Here is the preview to the movie of Queen Margot. You'll recognize certain things like the wedding. The brother actually insists that his sister gets married. She's not really excited about it because she has a boyfriend. And then, of course, there's the massacre. This is French movie. In French movies, it's not always happy ending. Killing and dying and craziness. Here's the wedding. Come on. Oh, there's the brother. I guess that means yes. And then the wedding ceremony and festival. It's a modern French movie, so they're going to be a little bit risque at times. Oh, wait, nope, here they're killing the Protestant guests. That's the brother, Henry III. You can tell it's a very modern movie of a historic event. The city of Paris filled with the corpses of those who had been massacred on St. Bartholomew's Day. Queen Margot, very, very French. Yeah. You'd have to look at the things there. So who's the hero? Yeah, right. Who's the hero from the story of Henry IV and Marguerite? Who would you say would be the hero? Henry III? Any hands on Henry III as a hero? Marguerite? How about Henry IV? Is he a hero to you and how that all played out? Yeah, kind of. I mean, he kind of flip-flops and so forth, but ultimately he does give religious freedom. That's a big deal in France. Okay? Next time we'll see people being thrown from buildings. Huh? Yeah, no, seriously, yeah. You'll learn a new word. It's called defenestration. To be thrown from an open window in a high building. Wipe down your desks, and after you've done that, then you may... No, you did. You did well as the... I like this. I bring a gun. You're like, yeah, you picked up on that right away. There you go. Okay, au revoir, which means goodbye in French, I think. Sayonara, yeah, there you go. Alexandre Dumas. It's not Damas, it's Dumas. Oh, okay, yep.